I think the best thing about the Fever's loss was how pissed Caitlin Clark was. I believe that's a genuine good sign for them moving forward because she's going to just say, F it, and take control of the game at some point here. And, you could see she was seething mad as this X post says here. You see the screen grab there. I'll pull it up full screen so you can see it. I don't want to play the video to not get in trouble here, but Caitlin was angry. She was not happy. And many of her fans are not happy as well. I mean, I opened the comment section on these videos, and it's just like that Christie Sides video we had earlier this week. There is no patience. There is no patience with this team or the coaching staff. Cool Hand 96 says, Christie is forcing her to be a shooting guard, not a point guard. Windy 6 says, Sides made the worst coaching decisions I've ever seen. Brandon Triple Z1 says, Christie is playing a losing style of basketball. She is sabotaging CC's game. She's a bad coach and needs to be fired tonight. So on and so forth. That's the general mood and tone I see from many Caitlin Clark fans. And I understand the frustration. I do. You saw Caitlin Clark's frustration, and you were so used to watching Clark thrive and flourish at Iowa. But like in many cases, I think this is an instance where several things are true at the same time. I did believe that Clark did not have the ball enough. I did believe that, Wheeler was handling the ball a little bit too much. And I do believe that Clark should really be the catalyst for everything they do. Spread the floor and let her cook. That's when her game is at its best. But also, it's not Iowa anymore. And the players that they're going against are superior. And on many of these occasions, Clark is getting blitzed. She's getting hit with a double, sometimes even a triple team. She's getting physically roughed up, so she doesn't have the opportunity to play her game. And also, the floor is too constricted. I've pointed out this before, but I really thought her and Aaliyah Boston could be a deadly pick and roll combination, Stockton Malone style combination, and even a dribble handoff type of deal where Boston does the dribble handoff. Clark uses Boston's frame to get open, get free, and get a shot off. But the way that they've been playing is not conducive to that. One, Boston needs to be less hesitant. She needs to finish much better. But schematically, structurally, Boston is standing in front of Clark a lot of times like they're trying to feed the post, and that's only taking up a space on the floor and making it so more attention can be paid to Clark, and she has fewer driving lanes and less room to operate. I think there needs to be more action between the two. So you have to make a choice. Again, pick and roll. Let Boston move a little bit, get her moving, get her in action. And that's some of the small things that can be changed. How much of that is on Christie Sides? Well, the Indiana Fever have not been a good team for a while now. There's a reason they had the number 1 pick. So I want to have a little patience here because Caitlin Clark is also getting adjusted to the WNBA. The players on the other team are also taking it very personally. We saw Dejanay Carrington in the first game rise to that occasion, rise to that challenge. I think you saw Breanna Stewart want to prove a point offensively and say, I'm the baddest woman on the court tonight. And you're going to get that. And that's going to be hard to deal with, especially for a team that's not as talented. Now, I've made this comparison before, and please don't take this as an insult. It's not an insult. It's just something that I've seen over the years in my career, where to me there is some similarities between the Clark-only fans and what I would call Jeremy Lin fans, Lin-only fans back in the day. I'm not saying Caitlin Clark is Linsanity or anything like that. And by the way, I think Jeremy Lin was underrated during his time. You don't do that in the NBA without being good, and he had a series of bad luck and other things like that happened afterwards. But I followed that story very closely because I was covering the Knicks, and one thing I noticed was that there were a lot of fans who weren't Knicks fans before, who weren't NBA fans before, weren't even fans of another player before, were simply Jeremy Lin fans. And that's okay. That's cool. They, obviously there was an Asian connection there and a lot of factors that play in, but they were Lin only fans. So it was Lin's success that they were rooting for and nothing else. And so anything that didn't go right was the coach's fault, was a teammate's fault, and they would lash out. And I've seen some of that from the Caitlin Clark only fan base, from the fans that, and I'm not painting with a broad brushstroke here. I think, everybody's their own individual, but I've noticed a tendency here from some Clark only fans to lash out. It's Christie Sides' fault. It's Aaliyah Boston's fault. It's Erica Wheeler's fault. It's everybody's fault but Clark. And I have to assure you on this. Women's basketball thrives if Caitlin Clark thrives. The better Caitlin Clark does, the better things are for women's basketball and the WNBA at large. They really need her to do well. They need her to flourish, to continue this growth in this moment. It was on an upward trajectory anyway, but the explosion is due to Clark and, Angel Reese coming at the same time, those sorts of things. So it is good for the league. Nobody's trying to hold her down. And Clark has the power in this dynamic. If Clark is frustrated and not happy with her coaching, not happy with her situation, she's not getting traded or anything, but she has the power to make things happen or to let it be known that that's the case and enact change. But most importantly, I saw her assert herself in that second half, that frame I showed you at the top where she was pissed off. And she started taking the ball and said, let's go. And I think that's really what we need to see more of for her game to flourish. But you have to remember, she's barely removed from playing in college and the NCAA tournament. These teammates are brand new to each other. This is a team that was not a good team a year ago, hence the fact that they got the number 1 pick. This is a team that has faced the Connecticut Sun, an excellent defensive team, the New York Liberty, a proven WNBA team. So I also feel patience needs to be involved. They got the primetime afternoon showdown on ABC coming up. There's a whole season ahead. Clark and her teammates have a chance to get acclimated with each other, to get better. The coach has a chance to adjust. I was frustrated too watching it, but I was encouraged by Clark's moxie. She's not going to just lay down and let this happen. She's a competitor. So I think it's a combination of factors, as is always the case. Clark is struggling a bit because this is new. Clark's teammates maybe aren't, in the proper position, whether it's coaching, whether it's other factors at play. Clark maybe doesn't have the ball in her hands enough. The defenses are blitzing her and getting the ball out of her hands. The defenses are physical and making sure she knows she's playing in the WNBA now. And the talent on the other team is superior. And they're, it's tough when you're taking the ball out of the basket a lot too, to get out and run and do those things. But I think you saw some of the rest of Clark's game, rebounds, the assists. She hasn't shot the 3 ball yet. I believe that'll come. But before we call for the coaches' heads, before everybody goes into complete panic mode, let's give it a little bit of time. But everybody harkens back to Lisa Bluter. It's not Iowa anymore. It's not going to be Iowa anymore. It's never going to be Iowa again. But I do agree with the sentiment that she needs to play free. Mike D'Antoni, that style of, I referenced Jeremy Lin before. Mike D'Antoni, ball in her hands, let her cook. But let's let the meal be prepared first before we cook everyone in sight.